Hi guys, so this is going to be an update to my boot animation for Android head units tutorial. The original video was done quite some time ago and it contains a few errors, and people has been asking me all these questions to address that. So instead of me answering all the time to same questions, I decided to make an update on that tutorial. So it's gonna follow pretty much what the original one did. So you'll be still needing the same set of tools. The first one is Hitfilm Express, and that is the video editor itself. Now, obviously, you can download it for free, or you can choose to donate to these guys. They do quite a good job. So that's one, and the second item on the list is your compression tool of choice. Mine one is WinRAR, and you can use 7-zip, WinZip, whatever you have handy. So you need both of these tools. Now, for the animation itself, obviously this is not Photoshop tutorial, so I won't be teaching you how to make these images. All I'm gonna show you is how to prepare these images in video editor, so you can make a nice animation that is compliant with these Android units. So once you fire up your Hitfilm Express, you choose new file, and you have to set some presets here. Typically, you would have your animation within 10 seconds, maybe 15 at best. The longer it is, the longer it'll take, obviously, for the unit to boot up. So keep it reasonable. I'll choose 15 seconds for now. Now, because these units come in two different flavors, the smaller screens are 1280 by 480, and the bigger screens are 1920 by 720. And the frame rate, just leave it at 25. It's more than enough for these units. Now, for this specific animation, I'll do it at 1280 by 480. So once that's set, you press OK, and the main working area should load up. Now, you have to have your files ready, or your images, your videos that you want to use in that animation, and I've prepared that earlier. And here I have some images, and I have some video that I want to use, and I need one more item here just to show you how to make these things. Right, okay. So that's your preview of all different items on your list here, and that's your timeline, and here you'll have a preview of the actual video you're making. So usually you would start with a video itself that will play at the beginning of this animation. Now, for having a continuity between the splash screen that appears at the very start of Android, that's the static image you see, and then the actual animation plays out. To have that consistent, the animation you're making with this static image, what you can do is you can flip the video you're seeing here other way around, so it'll be playing backwards if you like. So to do that, you go to Effects tab, and you'll look for Time Reverse, and you just grab that and drop on your video in here. And now when you press play, it plays backwards. So you can use the first frame of that animation for your splash image. So then you have consistent, nice transition between the splash image and the actual animation. So that's how you reverse the video, the source video you're working on. And as you can see, it actually doesn't end on a black screen. There's a wee glow in here. So if you want to get rid of that and have a nice transition, you would then go to your effects again and look for cross dissolve, and just drop it at the very end, and you can make it a bit shorter. It's basically a fade away. So the screen fades to black or whatever is underneath this layer. Now, there's been asked many times this question: can you add sound to your boot animation? Unfortunately, with these units, you cannot do that. The audio driver is not initialized until the system is already up and running, in essence. So no need for audio track here. So to make things neat, if you want, I just like to do that. You can unlink video and audio, and then just delete audio line itself, and you'll be left with just video tracks from now on. So you have your main video playing out, and now let's say you want to add your image of your car to appear after that. So what I'm usually doing here is splitting car image to few layers. So I would have underlying layer with lights, and I would shorten that to 10 seconds. You can see here that the total length of the video at that point in time is 10 seconds. So I would shorten this layer because I don't want my video to be longer than 10 seconds. So that's my end line here, and ultimately every single layer should terminate at 10 seconds. So I usually add my my base lights layer, then I place the actual car, and I give it a slight delay after the lights appearing. But then I have these lights as well, and these should go on top of car layer. So as you can see, you have nice underlying headlights, and then the actual lights are appearing on top of them, and then the car appears as well. But obviously you wouldn't just leave it like that. It's very choppy, so you again need to add some transitions, and you would go back to your effects, and again use same cross dissolve on these layers, and you would drop that at the beginning instead of doing this at the end. and that gives you this nice fade in effect. And obviously you can play with these times to extend time of lights themselves, for example. So you would have something like that, right? And a final layer you would add to all of this would be your welcome text of your choice. So again, that would go on top of all these other layers, so it all stacks up. And again, you don't necessarily want to have this just hardly appearing like this. You would add an effect, and there's no harm using cross dissolve if you like, but for this I like to use linear wipe. Linear wipe, and you can adjust settings of this linear wipe within that control panel. What I like to do, well, first of all, you can extend the duration of that linear wipe, so layers will appear slower in essence. But I like to add some feather as well, which makes this appearing softer. These layers appear a bit softer. So that should be your animation now playing in full. You have your main video, then lights and a car, and eventually you have your welcome text. And typically you would be done at this stage, but if you have any elements of your animation that you would like to do special effects, not in a sense of making a Marvel movie or whatever, it just layers, shifting, moving, things like that. So I usually do that with my own videos that I post on YouTube to make end screens. And for these dynamic layers, you would have to create a composite layer, composite shot, and again it'll fill with values from your main video you've set up previously. So you don't really have to adjust anything here. You just you can leave it like that, composite shot number 1, and press OK, and a new timeline will be presented to you, and you can use following images. Just drag them and drop in here, and again I like that lasting a very short time. So you have your 2 layers dropped in here. Obviously one is another on top of another one, so you can't see the underlying layer, but you can add transform effects to it, like scale and position, for example. And these 2 markers indicate that this transform will start in here, so at time 0, and then you move how many frames you want to move, and then you would actually change the position and scale of the image you're working on, doing this like so. So you could scale it down and adjust its position to fit within that frame. Like I said, in your case this could be anything else. If you want to have a moving object, scaling down, or it can dig deeper and add many other effects to your animation. But this is just a basic how to do things that will look simple but nice on your Android device. So that would be your transition. As you can see, there's a track line showing how this animation is progressing. So that's your composite shot, and you can close it down, and it's obviously saved as composite shot number 1. And you would then just drop it at the end, and for argument's sake, to the total length of the video of 15 seconds. And you would shorten that up, and that's your full animation with nice end screen transition. Yeah, something like that. So once you have that done, you need to export it somehow. So to do that, you go to this option, export, and add to queue, and you're adding to queue contents. So that's just these 15-second of the entire video that is in here. So whatever layers you have in here and how far they extend in time, that's your content. So you add to queue only that. Now you'll have some presets here, some default presets for exporting that to a video or image sequence in different qualities, different sizes, and so on. But for these specific Android animations, we have to keep these files reasonably slow. The partition that these animations are installed on is very limited in size, so ideally you would have your animations under 15 megabytes. I try to aim to have mine under 10 megabytes. So to create a new preset, you just go to Preset tab, you click on New Preset, and you select Image Sequence. And let's call it BMW Animation. And you pretty much leave everything stock except you choose JPEG sequence, and that's your file prefix, aspect ratio, everything. Just keep it as it is, keep it stock, and press OK, and that's your new preset in here. So if you go to your queue, you can select your just created new preset BMW animation. And all you do now is just press start. It'll take a few seconds. You'll have a preview here showing what is happening and what has been exported. And that's it. That's the JPEG sequence exported. Now, by default, that lands on your desktop, I believe. Obviously, you can set up your target folder. I never bothered actually changing that. So that's your image sequence. A total of 374 images, actually 75, but because that's 00. So that's what you'll be using for the Android animation, because Android doesn't actually play a video as such. It's showing images, and how it's showing images depends how you tell it to show these images. So to prepare that for Android to understand, you have to have a certain folder structure. So the first folder, I usually operate with 2 folders in my animations, but you can do it with 2, 5, 10, whatever you want, whatever you need actually. So I'll show you how I do it, and you can follow and use exact same amount or just whatever you want. So the first folder has to be called part 0. And within that folder, you will have your first part of animation. And to me, for this specific animation, the part 1 would be anything that is dynamic, from frame 1 up to last frame, where the actual text is appearing, which looks like at frame 213 it remains the same for the rest of the animation. Now, the reason I've shown you this bit is I export that to my YouTube as a video, and that is just a nice transition at the end. But obviously you wouldn't have necessarily this end screen unless you really want to do something like that. But let's, for argument's sake, let's say that at 213 that's your last frame, and you really don't want to have all these frames that are exactly the same after 213, because let's say from here, right, let's delete that end transition. So from 213 to 250, that's all the same image. It's copied all over the place. It's the same image. So what would you do to get rid of that? Is get 2014 editing onwards, and that is 1.5 megabytes already. You're saving that much space in your final animation, boot animation. So just simply delete that, and that's your first part. Now, because we've ended on frame 213, when your device will be ready to show the main launcher, and it will be ready by that time, you will probably see the last frame for a split second. So to extend that, you would take that last frame and move it to new folder, which we'll call part 1, and you'll move it to this new folder. Now you have two folders: that the main with all the moving images, and second folder with one static image. Now to make that something that Android can understand, you have to create a text document, and that has to be called description, just like that. And within that description file, you have to tell Android what you wanted to do with these two folders. So first, you need to start with some basic information. You need to tell Android what resolution these images are meant to be played at. So we have 1280 by 480, and then we have 25 frames per second. So that's your first line, and now Android knows how fast to play these images and at what resolution. Second line is we need to tell it what to do with these folders. So first folder, we can play these folders in two different ways. I believe there are more than two ways, but the two main ways you can play these folders. You can have them play in full, or you can have them play as long as the system is actually booting, and as soon as it's ready, it'll interrupt the video and move on. So for these animations, I just like to see them played in full. So for that, use parameter C. If you wanted to have these this playback interrupted, you would use P instead. So let's say you want to have the full full animation played out, and then we will move on to actual system booting up. So we would have C, and then we would tell Android how many times we want to play a certain folder. So we want to play the part 1 folder only once, and then we are going to tell it that we don't want any delay in playback. So and finally we tell Android what folder this is referring to. So part 0. So now we have play in full only once without any delay, part 0. And now we continue with part 2 because we have this static image. So again, play in full, but now to extend that last frame to last a bit longer, so you can see this this image in full for a few seconds on your screen before Android moves on to showing you the launcher. We would, for argument's sake, let's have this displayed for 2 seconds on its screen. So we need to repeat that single frame, that single image 50 times. We're obviously we've created this animation with 25 frames per second. So 2 seconds would be 50 frames. And again, we don't want any delay. And that's part 1. And the last line remains empty. And that's your description file. And you save that, close it, and that's your three main parts. Now, if you have something happening after part 1, you have another set of animation playing, then you create part 2, and you would tell Android to play the part 2 accordingly to your needs, and you just carry on with however how many parts you have. But for this very specific video, that's only 2 parts, and now we need to store it in a single file that Android can understand. So I'm using WinRAR, but you can use, like I said, 7-zip, WinZip, whatever you have handy. And you simply add that to archive, and that archive has to be a zip file. Compression method has to be stored. We are not compressing these images, so Android doesn't have to use processing power to unpack it. We are just using a zip folder as a container to store all these images, all these files. So compression method or level, it's how it's called in different programs, has to be set to store, and archive name, it has to be boot animation as a single word. And once that's set, you just press OK, and that's your animation ready. 4.4 megabytes, which is perfect. We are, like I said, we're trying to keep it under 15 megabytes. The smaller the file, the better. Now, that would be it pretty much for the boot animation itself. But there's also, I mentioned at the beginning, there's also a thing called splash screen. Now, that thing appears as a static image before the animation actually plays out, and unfortunately we cannot change it on every single unit. It's pretty easy to do on Android 9 and 10, but Android 11, because how the system is certified, signed with encryption key, this image, first image, the splash image, is part of this signature, and without access to the original key, we cannot replicate that in essence. So we can only create these custom images for Android 9 and 10. And to do so, I'll have that in the video description, link to that tool. But to do so, there's a tool prepared. I'm sorry, I can't remember who actually made the tool, but there's a very good tool, community made. So I'll just quickly show you how to use it. Because we want to have this continuity between static image and the animation, you would pick the first frame from here, just copy, and I'll take you to my tools, and that's your splash tool. Like I said, I'll have link in video description. You would place that image in pics folder and rename that to logo, and you would go back to the main folder, and there's a script that basically converts that to this static image, and the output is saved in here. Now you might have that saved under slightly different name. The key element here is to have that saved as splash.image. So you would take that and go back to your folder here, and that's your two aspects of the boot animation. Now to upload that to your Android device, you need to have a flash drive, 16 gigabytes or smaller, formatted to FAT32 file format, and I don't have one lying around, so I'll quickly show it here. So let's say that's my new that's the flash drive, right? So you would create a new folder, OEM, and you would move these two to that folder, and then you would take your flash drive to your Android unit, you would plug that in and wait for the confirmation message that the boot animation has been changed, and that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. If you have any questions, leave them in comments. You can join our community Discord server. It's also in video description, or talk to us on Beamer Post Forum. Again, link to that in the video description.